Hey everybody, how you doing? Been a while since we did one of these, huh? Well, no point in putting it off any longer. Who's ready to talk about One Piece Movie 4 Dead End Adventure? Woo! Berries, let's go! Yeah! This one goes out to all of my fans that are driving trucks. I actually get a lot of comments from people on like where they watch my content, and a lot of them are like, hey, Tekking, I drive trucks for a living, or I have some job that, makes me drive long distances, so I like to just put your videos up in like the car and listen to them on the long journey. So if you have a job like that, this one goes out to you. Alright, so Dead End Adventure, the first proper theatrical cinematic One Piece extravaganza, okay? The other three movies up until now, of course, were kind of short. I think none of them were longer than an hour. I think the longest one was the third movie. That was like 58, 59 minutes or something like that. So I don't know if you want to consider those movies proper or maybe like an extended OVA. I'm not really sure. They aired at the Jump Spring Fest alongside Digimon movies, so they didn't even have like a standalone release just by themselves, and the Jump Spring Fest is not even held anymore. But here we go. The fourth movie, finally, Dead End Adventure, aired in Japanese cinemas on March 1st, 2003. And so that was, oh god, that's actually almost the exact anniversary, because it's March 3rd when I'm, doing this video. So that was about a few days ago. That was the 18th year anniversary of One Piece Dead End Adventure. The 18th year anniversary. To put that in better perspective, because maybe a lot of you were not in the movie theaters in Japan back in 2003 watching the movie when it was first released, the closest episode that was released alongside this movie was actually one of the first episodes of the Jaya arc. It was the episode where they arrived at Mocktown, and that episode ended with Bellamy like wrecking everything and then, starting a fight, and it's like, ooh, what's Luffy going to do about that? Okay, so the beginning of the Jaya arc, which is the beginning of the Skypiea saga of One Piece, about 18 years old. That's absolutely insanity, right? That's like, wow, that's a long time. At any rate, it's 95 minutes long, so yeah, like I said, it's an actual proper, like, hour and a half, like a typical length for a movie, and it's pretty good, pretty good. So far, in all these movies that I've watched up until now, this is my favorite one, if we're just going sequentially, okay? Not getting any of the other movies that I've seen, like Strong World, or Film Z, or Film Gold, or Stampede involved, just out of the first four, this is easily my favorite, okay? And I think because this is a proper movie, maybe the Spring Fest ones, the ones that aired with the Digimon films, maybe that one was a little bit more of just like, hey, let's not think too serious about this when it comes to villains or plots or interesting character development or anything like that. Like, let's just have the Straw Hats in this little adventure, okay? So, the first two movies were like that. The third movie was obviously just a marketing scheme for Chopper and nothing else. It's like when Chopper showed up, everybody lost it. He's a marketing darling, so let's just throw him center stage in this third movie. Let's focus on Chopper and his coming of age tale to join the Straw Hat crew and all that stuff. So that's what the third movie was. But the fourth movie, I gotta be honest with you, I love the animation, I love the story. The villains are still pretty bland, and we'll get to those, but that seems to be typical for One Piece films. Like, even going to the most recent One Piece film, Stampede, Douglas Bullet, I mean, his backstory was interesting, being a part of Roger's crew and all that, but at the end of the day, Douglas Bullet was not a very interesting character. There was one scene in Stampede where Kid is fighting him, and, after, like, Douglas just wrecks everybody, and Kid's there, and he's just like, what are you doing here? What the hell do you even want? And, Douglas Bolt is just like, to be the strongest. I'm like, oh, yeah, haven't heard that before in an anime movie villain's repertoire. I want to be the strongest. I mean, you could pick that off a freaking list, right? It's so cookie cutter. So the villains in this are not super complex, but the movie does go into some character development involving the Straw Hats. All the Straw Hats have kind of a point to shine. Actually, I would say the ones that are actually featured the least here are honestly Zoro and Chopper. They get moments, but definitely a lot more scenes with Nami. Robin has some good stuff. Robin actually just, she's the most recent addition to the crew. This story takes place right in between Alabasta and Jaya, but it's before that the crew finds out about their new bounties, or maybe a little bit before their new bounties were issued after Alabasta, so Luffy still has the 30 million berry bounty. Zoro doesn't have a bounty yet. So Robin gets to do some stuff, and Usopp gets to do some stuff. There's a nice scene with Sanji Sanji that I'll mention, and then Luffy, of course, is the main character. So yeah, let's just dive right into this. Okay, so the movie starts off on a stormy sea as a marine ship is bombarding the Going Merry. So the Merry is fighting off a marine attack. You don't see any of the Straw Hats yet, just the Merry. It manages to escape. And the person going after the Straw Hats in this particular instance, the head of the marine vessel, is none other than Drake! No, not that Drake. I'm talking about Lieutenant Commander Drake, whose name is actually, I think, pronounced or spelled Driak, or whatever, but okay. So, Lieutenant Commander Driak, he's the guy that appears during the Navarone, or the G8 arc. Get ready for that, because guess what? This movie aired long before the Navarone or the G8 arc occurred, because this was during Jaya, so you still have all of Jaya plus Skypiea in the anime before we got to G8. But you know what? The first time we get to see G8 is in this movie. So that makes me think, at the end of the Skypiea arc, when the anime department was like, okay, we're gonna do a filler after Skypiea is over before we get to Long Ring Longland, they went to this movie and incorporated the Marine base Navarone into that filler arc. All right, and I kind of knew about that because I've made videos before talking about the G8 arc and how good of a filler it is and Jonathan and everything. So I knew it was like it did first appear here, but yeah, that's just an interesting little piece of trivia. Like they needed ideas for a filler arc, so they went to a movie. And overall, I mean, that filler arc is great. Now, unfortunately, we don't get to see Jonathan or anything here. Honestly, the G8 arc is more about, you know, little Easter eggs involving this movie because Drake shows up during the G8 arc, and he said in that arc, like, oh, I've been chasing around the Straw Hats for a while now. That's also calling back to this movie. So we don't get to see Jonathan, and unfortunately, Condoriano, the strongest character in all of One Piece, also does not make an appearance in this movie, unfortunately. But anyway, yeah, Drake is following them, and I just want to admit that this is kind of interesting, because the main villain of this movie is a guy by the name of General Gasparde, who is a Marine that had defected and gone over to be a pirate, which is very similar of the backstory of Diaz Drake, but he's not in this movie, but another Drake is in this movie who does in fact have sideburns, and their voice actors are the same person. So, a movie about a villain that used to be a Marine that became a pirate and then has their own crew and now is terrorizing the seas, and also includes a Marine that has sideburns with the same voice actor as Diaz Drake. Interesting. Just had to throw that out there because that's a little bit of a comparison, okay? So anyway, the Straw Hats get away, and Drake goes back in to talk on the Den Den Mushi, and he's saying, well, like, what's going on here? There's pirates everywhere, you know, all over this part of the ocean. And so the Marines on the transponder snail are like, yeah, they must be having that hullabaloo, that festival again around here. So there's some kind of pirate festival or pirate party going on in this part of the sea of the Grand Line. And so they also mentioned there that Gasparde is going to be part of this, and then that's where Drake gets very ominous, and he's like, the Navy's greatest stain. I mean, next to Drake. I mean, next to Zephyr. I mean, next to that time Aokiji defect. Well, that didn't happen yet, but you know what I mean? So he's like, no, in the context of this movie, Gasparde is the Navy's greatest stain, a great Marine. He's referred to as Shogun or General, which is not an official Marine rank, but, you know, it sounds cool. Shogun Gasparde, right? And of course, that's the direct translation of Shogun. So like the Shogun of like Wano Kuni, for instance, just means general. Okay, so that's something interesting. So after we pan out from the Marine ship as Drake looks out ominously over the water like the Marines are in trouble now, we get the title card, and then we cut over to Hanyabal Island, which is it's a big parties going on here. I really like this place. By the way, I need to do that Geography is Everything video on Mirrorball Island. I need to knock that one out at some point. But at any rate, Hanyabal Island is pretty damn cool too. So it's in the Grand Line, and this is awesome because the camera sort of does this POV thing. It kind of reminds me of like an early cutscene from like PlayStation PlayStation era, like PlayStation 1 era. And so it's like you take the you take the perspective of somebody like walking through the town. And so it's like 3D CG as you're moving around the town, but it looks pretty good for the time period. I mean, there's no moment we were sitting there like, oh my god, this looks ridiculously fake or really bad CG. It's just like 3D renderings of the houses and everything as 2D characters are animated and drawn in. It works. It really does. There's a few times in the movie where this is utilized, and I think it works perfectly. And so it really does give the vibe of this place off. I love the lighting and the shadow and everything. Like, this looks like a place, like, if I was in the One Piece world, if I got isekai'd, this would look like a pretty cool place to party, right? And so there's people all hanging out on top of the stairs that are leading, like, through the alleyways of this town and through buildings and stuff, and there's restaurants and bars, and there's, like, fires outside that people are gathering around and just having grog and rum and eating meat, and it just seems like a gathering of all people. You know, there's no Marines here. It's just like a bunch of... We later find out that this island is actually run by ex-pirates. Like, that's who founded the island. So it's an island run by ex-pirates that gathers pirates to live here and, like, kind of chill out, like a kind of a safe haven, right? And so I really like that scene. Like, you see a bunch of interesting characters all over town, like this dude right here. I wonder what this guy's story is. I'm gonna call him Ralph. Yeah, that's Ralph right there. Make up a backstory for Ralph. Anyway, as the POV continues, we zoom in on a bar, and it's the best kind of bar, too. It's not the kind of bar where you just walk in and it's a bar. No, it's a bar that has, like, an alleyway with a bunch of steps that goes down in, like, a spiral pattern, and you go all the way down, and the whole corridor is lined with wanted posters, with Luffy's being at the very bottom. And then you got the Old West-style saloon doors that the camera opens up, and then there are the Straw Hat Pirates all gorging themselves at a table in the bar. So, I gotta say, like, it's not a big bombastic intro or for the title sequence, but you really don't need to have that, right? I mean, other One Piece movies have kind of incorporated the opening credits scroll in something pretty interesting, like in Stampede, for instance, which is also a movie that takes place on a pirate paradise, like they're on a big island having this big pirate festival. Although I will say in this movie, it's a little bit more realistic, because in that one, they were basically like firing up flares and fireworks into the sky that's like, whoa, Pirate Island, we're having a massive festival over here. Hey, Marines, we're just a bunch of pirates, all of the biggest names in the entire world gathered in one location. Come on and Buster Call it all you want. You know, so that was Stampede. But you also have to understand the flow and the idea of Stampede was a celebration of like 20 years of the One Piece anime, all right? So it's this big, huge festival. This one's a little bit more subdued. But like I said, with the old school kind of animation and the lighting and the shading and that 3D, 2D element that they had going on here, all while the credits were scrolling, the music isn't really powerful or anything. It's kind of just like light, chill, sort of jazz music playing in the background as we're just walking through this town, and then people are talking in the background. You can hear them like walking in front of the camera. That's pretty cool. And then finally arriving at the bar to meet the Straw Hats. It's a good way to start off a movie. It sets the vibe and the tone for this town, okay? So the Straw Hats are in this bar. Luffy, of course, is just finished, you know, devouring, like, the entire menu. You know, Nami's talking about how they're a little bit low on money. They're basically just looking for a place to earn quick money here on this island, okay? Sanji mentions there's no casinos here or anything, so how are we gonna... That's not until Film Gold that we're gonna get a casino involved, so, you know, how are we gonna get some money here? It's kind of like the start of a D&D campaign, right? It's just like, okay, after the last campaign, you guys are a little bit broke at the moment, so your group gathers at a bar trying to figure out like how you're gonna make some more gold. That's basically where the Straw Hats are here. So while they're in the bar, they notice a pirate walk in with some denim. You know, he's got like a denim vest going on, and he sits down at the bar, and he's just like, "Hey, barkeep, I'll take a tankard of rum." "Yeah, okay, glug, glug, glug. Also, by the way," and he lays down 2 100-berry coins on the bar, like a secret code. And so the bartender's just like, all right, meet me at the door and back. And so he walks over, and then the Straw Hats are sitting in the bar kind of watching this exchange. At least Nami and Zoro are. It's a pretty funny scene where Zoro's talking to Nami, just like, hey, yeah, you see that guy over at the bar over there? Yeah, he put 2 coins down and he walked into the back door. Something's going on. Something's up with this place, right? And so all the while that that's going on, though, Usopp and Chopper and Luffy are just like, oh, I'm just devouring all the food. So there's like fish bones and like, food like smacking Zoro in the face. Hey, Nami, that guy over there, he was, paid some 2 coins and then he went into the back of the, just like food's hitting him in the face, but he just doesn't care because it's so normal for Zoro. So that's pretty funny. And so Nami goes up to the bar and performs her wiles to try to get the bartender to spill the beans on what's going on in the back room. And so she walks up, and so yeah, the camera, and we see her butt, and okay, yeah, all right. And then the bartender basically just kind of like, I want you to picture this, okay? This is a bartender working on a pirate island that's basically the cover or the doorman for the secret pirate underground paradise, all right? And so he's there, and he's cleaning a glass or whatever. I like this dude. I really do. Let's call him Jack. Let's call him Jack the bartender. He actually shows up for a cameo later, I think, in Strong World. But at any rate, he's there and he just looks at Nami and he glances over the table and he recognizes who they are right away. This is an entire, like Luffy's wanted poster is literally plastered right outside the door. They know who they are. So, Jack is just like, I know who you are. I know he's Straw Hat Luffy. I know his bounty. I know 30 million, highest in the East Blue. But Jack is kind of just like, you guys are sort of like just kids in this whole pirate thing. Maybe it's probably best you're not ready for what's in, what's going on here. Maybe you should just leave. If you're not willing to risk your lives, then you should probably just go. Then Zoro shows up and they kind of convince him otherwise. And he's just kind of like, okay, fine, I'll let you in, but hey, it's your own thing, if you die, it's not on me. So he opens the back door, and it leads to a mine shaft, and it's just like, yeah, just walk down to the end of the mine shaft, and there's a doorman that'll be waiting, he'll let you in. Oh, by the way, keep in mind, the password are 2 100 berry coins. And they're like, okay. And Usopp in particular is kind of like, this is a really bad idea. And you know what? In this particular instance, I kind of got to side with Usopp. It's just like, all right, so we're just going to walk into a mysterious, deserted mine shaft into the darkness with just a single lantern just because some guy says that you can make money at the end of it. Yeah, that doesn't seem like that's going to be a setup for anything on an island that's very clearly filled with pirates. Did you see that denim guy that walked in with the denim vest? We actually do get a name for that dude way later. So in the 9th movie, there's a moment at the beginning where we flash through all of these wanted posters, and we actually do get to see his wanted poster, and he's the famous pirate, the famous pirate, or maybe AAA. I don't know what his actual, Arthur Allen Applejack. Now, we already used Jack. Arthur Allen Appleseed. That's his name. He's like, I'm the great pirate worth 2,200,000 berries. Arthur Allen Appleseed. You better get out of my way. I'm gonna win the dead-end race, okay? So at any rate, they walk down the tunnel. Right before they leave, though, the Jack, the bartender, he's kind of just like, what are you guys, like, what kind of pirates are you, or what are your goals, what do you hope to accomplish? And Luffy does the whole, like, well, I'm gonna be king of the pirates kind of thing, what he always says. And I like Jack, because he's just kind of like, you go, kid. You go. Try not to die. I'll be rooting for you. So I like the bartender. Just a nice little moment where it's just like, you know what? I think these kids, I think they could pull it off. Okay, so the Straw Hats walk to the end of the tunnel. There's a spooky guy there that has a knife. Nami shows up, shows him the 2 100 berry coins. He opens the door, and we are met with, I love this location. This might very well be one of my favorite locations in the entirety of One Piece. I should probably do a geography is everything on this place, okay? They walk in to, like, a multi-layered, subterranean, like, pirate shopping mall is, like, the best way I could possibly describe this place. This place is awesome, okay? So, it's underground, and there's a bunch of levels that, like, go down, and then there's a big hole in the center, and at the very bottom of the hole, there's, like, a pond or, like, a lake, and there's a giant boat that's, like, at the top, like, how ships are, like, lower down into this place, or how you get into it. And so, it's like a shopping mall. There's
there's like, you know, restaurants and bars and shops just lining and like in circles, so you have to keep going down, and the whole place is lit up. Like I said, the lighting in this movie is really good, and Jolly Rogers are draped over the edges of the balconies, and so all that stuff makes for an amazing place. I would love to visit this location. I would probably get beat up because nothing but pirates, but I would love to visit this location nonetheless.
So they walk in, and Luffy and Usopp, of course, they're looking around the place like, wow, this place is awesome, right? What is this? What is going on down here, right? And so this is where Robin explains what this place is. She's actually been there before with another pirate captain. I love that because this is well before O'Hara. This is well before we find out like everything involving Robin's backstory, but I think it was explained at this point that like her first job was not for Crocodile and Baroque Works, okay? She worked for other organizations before this. This was something that just got brought up in the last chapter of One Piece, actually. So yeah, she's been with other pirate captains before this, and she came here years ago, and this is sort of like a pirate sanctuary, and every few years they have a race called the Dead End Race, and the winners of the race win a massive cash prize. This year, it's 300 million berries. 300 million berries? That's worth like 1/3 of Jack! I know 300 million is not that impressive, but keep in mind that would eventually go on to be Luffy's bounty, and that was also the amount of the gold that they managed to take from Skypiea that would allow them to buy a brand new ship. Essentially, the Thousand Sunny was built for 300 million berries, okay? Granted, they had, you know, Frankie to help them out there, and I'm sure that, you know, they gave them some extra supplies for free, but 300 million, that's quite a lot of money, and it gets Nami pretty excited for what's going to go down here. So Nami goes to sign them up for the race and everything, and we learn a little bit about the favorites and, you know, who's the number one bet, so to speak. So we see Bobby and Pogo, who are two giants, so we see those the guys hanging out at the bottom of the mall area, and they're like just, you know, hanging out next to the pond, drinking a bunch of booze, and so that's cool. We have giants here in this movie. It seems like the person that wrote this really did take into account everything that we knew about the One Piece world up until this point. So giants, fishmen, they all make an appearance here. Speaking of fishmen, we also have Willie, who's the second favorite to win. It was also mentioned that he is a fisherman that used to be an old rival of Arlong's back in the day. So, like I said, it's just like a reference, like pathos or whatever, but we got a reference to Arlong here, okay? Actually, not the first reference. We'll get back to him a little bit later. So, we have some giants in this race. We got a fishman in this race. We got a lot of other people hanging out, a lot of interesting pirate crews, and then this Gasparde, this ex-marine turned pirate, is the number one contender. Like, he's the one that's betted on the most to win in this particular race here, okay? So, at this point, Sanji and Robin and Nami just kind of hang out on a table and just have some coffee while everybody else just kind of runs around. Luffy goes to go eat some more food because they found out, like, this place has free food, so they're like, okay, let's go eat. Oh, one more thing. As Nami is signing everybody up for the race, they give her a eternal pose to an island called Partia. You know, literally Partia. It's the place where you party, right? It's Partia. And so it's like that's the final destination for the race. So the basic idea of the race is like no holds bar, anything kind of goes. Go from this island, from the starting point, to that island that the eternal pose points to, Partia. First crew to get there wins the cash prize of 300 million. That's pretty much the dead end race. Not very complicated, but that's how it goes. So now we cut over to see what's up with Luffy, where we get introduced to another new character. And I gotta say, Luffy, I know the joke is like Luffy eats a lot, and Zoro's even like, you know, my god, your stomach is bottomless. Luffy he's a pretty big jerk, though, in this scene, okay? Because Luffy's not only eating the food on his table, he's reaching over and just grabbing food off of other people's tables and eating that. And there's, like, the kitchen staff are coming out with food for other tables, and Luffy's just grabbing it off of, like, as soon as the waiters walk out of the kitchen, like, table 6, here's your order. Oh, what? And then Luffy's like, oh, that's good, that's good, that's good. So, Luffy, I mean, I'm just saying, buddy, if you're not careful, this is an entire place filled with pirates, you're gonna get your face beat into a table in case you're not. Oh, okay, so it actually happened. All right, well, I would be rather surprised if it didn't, okay? So this guy shows up wearing this yellow jumpsuit kind of deal, sporting a sickle tattoo on his face, and he's trying to eat, and, like, Luffy keeps stealing his food, so I mean, what's the other appropriate response to this, okay? He goes over and BAM! Slams Luffy's face right through the table. Zoro's like, okay, are we doing this? And then freaking Luffy just gets back up after getting his face knocked in. And he just kind of looks over at the dude and he's just like,
well, you know what I'm going to do next, right? I'm like, well, do I? I don't really know what you're gonna do next, Luffy, because this also, plays very similar to the scene during Jaya when somebody started a bar fight and you decided just to walk away. In this scene, it kind of looks like Luffy's about ready to get into a brawl himself. It's just like, it's like, dude, Luffy, once again, you were kind of in the wrong here. And all the other pirates kind of get up from the tables too, and they're just like, yeah, that was just the first guy that decided to pound your face into the table. We were all thinking it. You were stealing our food for like the last 10 minutes. That shit was getting old pretty quick, So this character right here is named Shuraiya, all right? And I love this dude. This dude is so awesome, okay? He's a bounty hunter, which that's something we don't get very often in the One Piece story, especially not in the recent years. I mean, back then, maybe a little bit more, but bounty hunters don't really pop up too often now. So he is known as
The pirate executioner, Shuraiya Basakudo. I don't know why I like this guy so much. He just looks extremely awesome, okay? Let's take a look here. Let's, actually try to break this down, because there's just something about this guy that resembles someone. I can't put my finger on it. I don't know. Okay. So, he's tall and lanky, kind of athletic. He's got, medium-length curly hair. He's got a distinguishing tattoo on the left side of his face. That's interesting. His name starts with an S. He sometimes wears a top hat. He's a bounty hunter. He's martial artist, kind of thing. I just can't put my finger on it. I don't know. I don't know who he is. Okay, so the similarities between Shuraiya and Sabo, they're definitely there, okay? Now, obviously, this was years and years before Sabo even showed up during the flashback at the Gray Terminal, okay? Because this was during the Jaya arc of the anime. Obviously, the manga would have been a little bit further ahead, but not by much. The manga was probably in the middle of Skypiea when this was going on. So long before Sabo was ever referenced, okay? And longer still since he shows up at Dressrosa as a member of the Revolutionary Army. But I don't know, because Oda is still the one that designed him. Oda's the one that designed Shuraiya and Gasparde for the movie. He even drew them before in a cover spread way back in the day. So I can't help but think that maybe when Oda was trying to think of Sabo's adult design when he meets Luffy at Dressrosa, maybe he was thinking about taking some inspiration from Shuraiya, the character that he drew, years ago for a random movie. Possibly, because his name starts with an S, he wears the top hat, Sabo's got the scar on the left side of his face, Shuraiya's got this sickle tattoo on the left side of his face, very martial artist adept. Sabo uses a pipe as his main weapon. Shuraiya, get this! Well, actually, twofold. First off, he doesn't have a default weapon. This is an anime character that just doesn't use a regular weapon, just uses martial arts or just picks up whatever he's got on hand to use. But for the final scene of this movie, when Shuraiya goes up against the main villain, Gasparde, he uses, get this, I want you to guess what weapon he uses. Guess. Go for it. Okay, did you guess? All right. A shovel. A shovel. The dude is like, all right, I'm gonna go fight the main villain of this movie. I don't have a weapon. I guess I better pick something up. Oh, look. A shovel. It's not even a magic shovel. It's not like a shovel made of sea prism or a shovel that ate a devil fruit that can turn into like a giant dragon fish duck or something. It's just a shovel. He picks up a shovel and is like, yeah, this should be good enough to take down a Logia. Yeah, fine. I don't know if that makes him the stupidest character or the most badass. I don't know. Probably some combination, some point in between, but shovel. Okay, kind of like Jack from Mare. That is the only other character in the entirety of anime and manga, and probably all of fiction that I know of, that fights with a shovel is Jack from Mare, and that's it. Okay, but I like that character, so why not? Just keep rolling with it, okay? But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, okay? But that's Shuraiya. So the entire restaurant gets into a fight, the people are mad at Luffy, and they're also mad at Shuraiya because he's a bounty hunter, and they know who he is. So they start fighting. Really cool choreography of the fight. Shuraiya's jumping behind tables, and bullets are going through, and he's throwing the tables aside. He's throwing chairs at everybody here. Another inspiration for at least his outfit, like the yellow and black jumpsuit, is Bruce Lee from The Game of Death.
death, okay, because that's also in a comparison that's pretty obvious there. You know, Bruce Lee, martial arts, badass, extraordinaire. Okay, so the inspiration there is definitely prevalent. So they're running around this pirate mall or whatever, and we get to see a lot of it, and there's this chain in the center of the hole that's being raised up to the ceiling, and so Shuraiya grabs onto that, and all the pirates try to climb on it to chase after them. There's a really funny scene where Luffy's on this chain being raised up to the ceiling with all these pirates coming after them, and the chain passes where Nami and Robin and Sanji are just drinking coffee, and Nami's just like, Luffy, what are you doing? What's with all these pirates? And Luffy's just like, oh, it's okay, Nami, it's just a fight. And Nami's like, oh, okay, don't get hurt, don't get lost, be back by bedtime. You know, it's a funny moment there. Anyway, so they get to the top. Shuraiya and Luffy pretty much wipe out all the remaining members of the pirate crew who are members of Gasparde's crew. And so they jump off of the boat and they land right in front of a dark, foreboding, ominous bar called Bacchus. And inside of the bar, all of the people that were in there and the staff are just beat to hell, and they're on the ground all dead or bleeding out or whatever. And in the center, you see Gasparde himself next to his first mate, okay, he uses like Wolverine claws to fight, and he's got a bunch of piercings, so I think his name is supposed to be read as like Needles, but it's actually spelled as Needless, so whatever. But I first time watching this through, I thought his name was just Needles, and then we get the name, it's Needless, but whatever. And so they're there, and they look pretty strong. And Gasparde is basically just looking at Luffy and Shuraiya beat the crap out of his crew. But of course, because Gasparde is kind of a cliche villain, he's just like, whatever, they were weak anyway. I don't care about weak people being on my crew. They could just all die, whatever. Anyway, you guys look pretty strong. You want to join my crew? And so he's offering Shuraiya and Luffy to join. So Luffy doesn't like this guy immediately. He's just like, you don't care about being a pirate. You don't care about what it really means. You don't care about your nakama. You don't even treat them like nakama. I hate you. I'm not going to join your crew, okay? You are like standing for everything I'm against. And then Shuraiya, though, Shuraiya kind of takes him up on his offer. He's just like, yeah, sure, I'll join your crew. The pirate executioner, the bounty hunter, is joining a pirate crew. I wonder if that's going to lead into anything. Probably not. He just wanted a choice of career that's a little different. There's also a scene here. This is actually a really great scene for a few reasons, okay? So first thing, Luffy's hat gets knocked off, and there's a moment where Gasparde is about to step on it, and Luffy, like, grabs it. Needles or Needless, you know, has his, like, claws right at Luffy's throat, and he gets away from him, and he's like, you know, don't step on that hat. And Luffy picks up the hat, and Shuraiya's like, you know, does that mean a lot to you? And he's like, yeah, a pirate named Shanks gave me this hat. And this is long before even the concept of a Yonko even exists, so they don't do that. Instead, Shuraiya refers to Shanks as a great pirate. Oh, the great pirate Shanks. So not Yonko, because the term didn't exist, but it's still very prevalent that Shanks is famous all over the world, and Shuraiya knows all about him, okay? So that's still something that's interesting. Also, what's interesting is the soundtrack in the background of this scene. So remember when Shanks showed up at Marineford to end the war, and there was that moment where he's like, you know, remember the fallen, care for the wounded, you know, this war is now over. And in the anime, there was a soundtrack that played that was very reminiscent of, I think it's used a lot with Shanks's character. And in this movie, there's a very brief, more of an interlude than anything, and it's not a very long orchestral score, but it's like a flute. And it's like a rendition of that, like a flute version of that scene. And so I can't play it because it's copyrighted, but I'll leave a link down in the description if you want to go listen to it. It's a very peaceful kind of scene, something that I could see like in Zelda or something, you know, like flute music as Luffy's just picking up his hat and talking about what it means and talking about, you know, what Gasparde stands for, and Gasparde's like laughing at Luffy like, ha ha ha, whatever, stupid hat, dreams are nonsense. You know, so pretty standard. And as for Needless, he doesn't even speak, really. He's just the quiet, stoic, really strong bodyguard. It's pretty obvious, considering we're just leaving Alabasta, that Gasparde is supposed to be, you know, Crocodile, and Needless is like Daz Bones, like Mr. One. You know, in that regard, like, their dynamic is pretty much similar, except they're way less interesting, because at least Crocodile is, you know, a canon character. We find out a lot more stuff about Crocodile later, and even with Mr. One a lot later when he shows back up at Impel Down. Here, it's just like, I'm the captain, I have a Logia, I'm really strong, and then there's like, I'm the quiet bodyguard that uses, steel weapons to fight you, and that's pretty much it there. So, like I said, you'd be surprised how often in One Piece movies it's the villains that are like the weakest part of the whole thing. And at the end of the day, I mean, the Straw Hats are the ones that kind of carry the show, and maybe some other supporting characters that are introduced, like Shuraiya. I love Shuraiya. It just seems like they always seem to go, like, when it comes to the Straw Hats, they're good. When it comes to introducing the new allies of the Straw Hats, they're good. But then when it comes to the villains, they're just like, yeah, let's just have this villain be really mean and stand for everything Luffy's against, and that'll be the point. Now, not always. Like Zephyr in Film Z, that was a villain. Not even like, well, he was a villain. He was trying to like blow up the new world, so that's pretty villainous. But like in that movie, he is more of a tragic character. You find out he's not just doing it because he's like, I'm evil. There's more stuff to that. And in the more recent, well, I can't even say in that regard because Douglas Bullitt, like I said, was pretty shallow. But every now and then they'll pop up. But so far, from movies 1 through 4, they're not very interesting. Okay. So that's pretty much that scene of the movie. Luffy gets to meet Gasparde, he hates him, and that's pretty much setting up the final battle that will inevitably happen between those two during the climax. We also get introduced to Shuraiya. There's 2 more characters I gotta introduce that are integral for this plot, and that is Anaguma and then Biera. All right, so working on Gasparde's boat, which is a giant steamship called the Salamander, which is a marine vessel that he, like, X'd out the marine logo and has this giant, like, salamander dragon figurehead. So that's pretty cool, right? Also kind of reminiscent of Drake's ship, the Liberal Hind, that he, like, inverted the color scheme from the Marines to his own version. That's, like, a more red version. So that's interesting there. Working the ship's boiler for the steam is an old man by the name of Biera, and they're not actually related. At least I don't think they're related. I think it's more of just like, hey, grandpa, as like more of an honorific rather than like actual grandparents, is a little kid by the name of Anaguma. For most of the movie, like she's disguised to look like a boy. At the end of the movie, we find out she's a girl by the name of Adele, and I'm just going to throw it out there right now because it's more of a side plot, and it doesn't really involve anything in like the bigger picture of this movie. It kind of does, more so than other movies, but her name is Adele Basakudo, who is Shuraiya's younger sister, okay? And when they were little kids, they lived on an island called Alina, which resembles Water 7 quite a bit, actually, with, like, Venice with, like, the canals and everything. Gasparde and his crew attacked the island, burned it to the ground. Shuraiya tried to save Adele. They got separated. Shuraiya went off to become a bounty hunter, and Biera, the old grandpa of the boiler, he saved Adele, and they both got captured by Gasparde, and so now they're working for his crew. Okay, so that's pretty much all you need to know about that initial setup there. At the end of the movie, we find out that, Shuraiya is reunited with his little sister, and they're happy, and it's good. And of course, for the 4th movie in a row, we got a little kid palling around with the Straw Hat crew. But I gotta say, this time, it actually connects back to the Straw Hats, like, characters, and it's involving into the plot of what happened in the story up until now. Because Tobio was the first kid from the first movie, and he was just like, I want to be a pirate! And the Straw Hats end up with him just by happen chance, and they're just like, all right, I guess this kid's gonna tag along. And then in the second movie, it was the kid Akisu, who at the end of the movie we find out is like the son of the scientists from Clockwork Island. And I'm sure everybody in the movie theater was just like, that literally is entirely irrelevant to everything that I've ever cared about. It's just like, what? Some random kid that we got to meet in some random One Piece movie is actually the son of the scientist from Clockwork Island? Whoa! Like, nobody cares, okay? And then in the third movie, Mobambi, who was the kid that was being raised by the Kirin lion on the Island of Animals, is really not in the movie that often because, like I said, the third movie was all about Chopper. We gotta focus on Chopper, Chopper, Chopper. So I guess I was okay with Mobambi just because he wasn't really annoying and he was just there, okay? But in this movie, we got Anaguma, which just means badger, or Adele is her real name, and we'll get into a moment with her that's actually very very interesting involving Nami, and then another moment with Sanji. So we'll get into that in a second here. But anyway, the following day, well, no, I guess I should mention that one scene. So Biera is very sick. The old boiler man, he's very sick, and he looks like he's about to die. And Adele is trying to get medicine for him, and she goes to Gasparde and like, please, you gotta help him. And so Gasparde hands Adele a gun and is like, just take that gun and go try to eliminate some of my competition in town. Try to eliminate some of the other pirates that are going to be entering the Dead End race tomorrow. And if you can do that, if you can bring them back their heads, then I'll make you an official member of our crew, and then I'll give your grandpa some medicine. I'll make sure he gets medical treatment, okay? And so Adele is just like, probably Gasparde is lying because he's Gasparde, but Adele is like a little kid, so she's like, yeah, okay, I'll do that. So she runs off, and she doesn't want to kill anybody, of course, but she's like, if that's what I gotta do to save my grandpa, I guess I gotta do it. So she runs into town. Okay, so the following day, the Straw Hats, take the Mary and they, raise anchor and everything. And this is an interesting scene where we get the beginning of the race. It's very similar to Reverse Mountain, just like how in Stampede they redid the knock-up stream to get to the island with the treasure. In this movie, they basically redo Reverse Mountain, where there's a giant mountain on Hanyabal Island that has a bunch of streams that lead up it, and a giant gust comes through every few years that pushes all the boats down these canals. Once again, we get another really cool tracking shot of like the 3D and like the 2D characters as the Mary pans out and shoots through the canal, and they're all heading toward the streams, and they all get blasted up the side of the mountain, and then boom, they get flung over the other side, which is a giant waterfall. They get sent flying down. A lot of the ships just fall into the island and just like destroy towns and buildings. So this is a lot of collateral damage for this dead end race. I mean, it's not just the dead end race for the pirates, it's also for the citizens of this town. The giants, Bobby and Pogo, their ship runs aground and just slams into the freaking town. So if you thought they were going to do anything relevant in this movie, no, they don't really. Willie's ship, the Fishman, has a giant freaking drill on the front of it that just captures ships in front of it and just destroys them, just gets shredded into freaking like scrap wood, and then just like continue onward. The Straw Hats have a lot of really cool moments. There's one moment where Luffy has to go into balloon to like cushion the Mary and have it fly off, and then they're gonna hit the ground, and so Robin actually uses she uses Grand Fleur, but this is like Mille Fleur before Mille Fleur, where she makes a giant hand to grab the side of a building and pull the Mary back on track, back into the water. So really cool action scenes. There's an awesome moment with Usopp here where they're heading down this waterfall, and there's other ships that are like attacking each other, and Willie's has the giant drill, and they're like, what the hell? And Zoro's like, hey, the race started. They said it's anything goes, right? So anything goes. Usopp, watch the aft of the ship. And so Usopp's like, what? And so Usopp just walks to the back of the Mary, and there's a giant pirate ship on the back, like tailgating the Sunny, basically, like right there. And so Usopp's just like, all right, I'll take care of it. Puts on his freaking bandana, puts his goggles, and just lights the cannon, and then boom, just sinks the ship in one shot. That was so cool. Usopp was just like, he was freaking out like he normally does, but then Nami's like, go watch the back of the ship, and Usopp goes there. He sees this giant pirate ship looming right over behind the Mary, and he's like, okay, I guess I gotta do it. Boom! It's like, yeah, take that! So Usopp had a cool scene there. So all of the ships, not all of the ships, a lot of them get destroyed in the process, and Gasparde, of course. Spoiler alert, Gasparde is cheating at the race. I know many of you were probably very shocked by that revelation, but he's cheating at the race. So the remaining ships get out to sea. The Mary's kind of in last place, but the dead end race begins proper as they race to Partia Island. Okay, cool. So after things calm down a little bit, Zoro investigates the Mary, where he hears some kind of noise coming from the bathroom, and Anaguma, or Adele, pops out with the gun. Zoro grabs her and like throws her into the main dining room area so the crew can figure out what's going on here. It was kind of funny because there's one scene where they're like, oh, so you had to assassinate one of the pirate crews. That's why you came to us, the Straw Hats, because we're worth so much. And Adele is just like, no, I came to you because
because you were the smallest ship in the entire port. I thought you would just be the weakest pirate crew. It's like, ah, well, good point. Yeah, that is also kind of true. We do have like a tiny ship. At any rate, this is the scene between Adele or Anaguma and Nami that I'm really interested to talk about here, okay? So Anaguma gets found out, and so there's a moment where Robin, like, they take her gun away from her, but then Robin just gives it right back and just says, well, let's test your resolve if you're actually going to, like, actually shoot anybody. So Anaguma fires a shot right at Luffy, who of course is immune to it being rubber, so he just bounces it right back into the wall, and she's just like, you know, like, what are you, right? So, you know, this is kind of a weird moment where it's just like, yeah, a kid snuck on board the Mary to kill us. We just took her gun. Just give it back to her, see if she's really dedicated to the craft. And she shoots the captain, and then they just go about the rest of their morning like, wow, this is a busy morning. Anyway, anybody want some eggs, bacon, got some coffee here? You know, just a wacky morning aboard the Going Mary with the Straw Hat crew. So after that, Adele just basically just throws down the gun, and she's like, you know what? I'm done with all of this. I'm done. I'm tired of being a member of Gasparde's crew, basically being a slave working for him. You know, and now I'm captured by you guys. Just end it, okay? I don't even want to live anymore. This is just ridiculous, you know? And so she's there in the corner, and that actually pisses Nami off quite a bit for her to say that, okay? Because Nami is someone that was raised her whole life by Arlong. You know, she was a slave from Arlong, you know, for so long. And so she had many moments in her life where she felt like it was hopeless. You know, Bellamere was dead or everything, but, you know, she always hung on. And then she eventually saw the light at the end of that tunnel when Luffy came and everybody helped her out to defeat Arlong at Arlong Park and everything. So she's there listening to Adele saying, like, you know what? There's no hope for me. I'm captured. I live in a pirate ship, and now you guys have captured me. Just end it. I don't even want to be around anymore. And Nami has a moment where she just stands up and she's like, Zoro, let me borrow your katana for a second. And we're like, oh, where's this going? Right? So she picks up the Wado Ichimonji. This isn't the Wado Ichimonji, but she picks up the Wado Ichimonji. Zoro, by the way, is 100% cool with this. Zoro is just like, all right, just, you know, whatever. You know, she picks up the sword, draws it, and it's just like, points it at the kid, and it's just like, you never say something like that. Never say, like, you don't want to live. Never say it is hopeless. As long as you're alive, there is hope. You gotta keep pushing onward, okay? So Nami gets really, like, infuriated at this because of her own backstory and everything that happened there. She doesn't want to see a kid just give up because she lived through the same stuff, and then she made it out so, you know, Adele can make it out as well. You might argue that scene isn't conveyed in the best of ways. It is a little goofy because even after that really dramatic scene when Nami takes out the sword and like has that dramatic speech, we kind of cut over to the other Straw Hats just being goofy. Like Usopp and Chopper and Luffy are just sitting on the floor eating crackers like whatever, and Sanji and Robin are like smiling like ha ha, such a wacky day on the ship. You know, like this should have been maybe a little bit more of a serious moment, you know, connecting back to Nami's backstory and everything. But the next scene definitely covers it a little bit more, okay? So the next scene, Adele is outside, and it's snowing now because it's the Grand Line. It's just weather's random. And so she's sitting out in the snow on the deck of the Mary. Sanji brings her a blanket and kind of just sits down, and we get like some sad music playing in the background, and Sanji's there smoking a cigarette, and Adele's not really saying anything, just kind of in the corner, and Sanji's like, you know, our navigator, Nami, her mother was killed by pirates, like right in front of her face. Like just shot dead right in front of her. And then those pirates enslaved her for another 8 years until we showed up. I can't imagine the kind of life she lived. You know, that reindeer in there, he's had a lot of troubles too. You know, we all had troubles growing up and, you know, encountering pirates and stuff like that. But, you know, there's always like, there's hope, you know, we made it through so you can make it through too. That's basically like the message that Nami and Sanji are like trying to get across to Adele. And there's another scene after Sanji walks away, Usopp and Luffy are there kind of like laughing, like giggling, like, so you seem to have, you know, take a liking to that kid. And Sanji's like, Yeah, I wonder why that is. And so I can't help but think, this was years before this, before we find out about Sanji's backstory with the Germa and everything, but I can't help but think that's going to connect back to this as well, right? Because Sanji also grew up being raised by not really pirates, but might as well have been, really, you know, Judge and the way that he was raised and everything, locked in a dungeon with a freaking iron mask, you know, like that's not fun, you know, it's not quite as bad as the way, you know, Arlong enslaved, you know, Nami and, you know, shot Belmere dead and everything like that. It's not quite as bad as that, but still not a great upbringing. So Sanji has definitely some stuff to say to this kid as well, of just like, hey, look, Nami's had a messed up childhood, Chopper had a messed up childhood, Luffy had a messed up childhood, I had a messed up childhood, Usopp's childhood, you know what, you know, compared to the rest of ours, was pretty okay. I mean, his mom died and his dad went out to sea to become a pirate, but overall, you know, Zoro's, you know, his best friend fell down some stairs and died. What are you gonna do? It's a rough world we live in there, kid, but you're just gonna have to keep on pushing through. So that's basically the message here at the end of the day. And so that was a nice little moment there where we touch upon Nami's backstory and Chopper's a little bit, and even Sanji's a little before Sanji's was a thing. So I wanted to bring that up there. Next up, we have some scenes where another pirate ship, just another random member of the race, you know, shows up and they want to fight the Straw Hats. Zoro and Sanji kind of hold Luffy back, like, "Hey, Luffy, you always get to fight. Let us do it for a change." And so we have a pretty cool scene where Zoro and Sanji fight together, and they have these really cool one-liners because this pirate crew is not a threat at all. And so Zoro's just like, you know, nothing personal, but we're gonna dice you guys up. And Sanji's like, "I got dinner to cook, guys. Let's hurry this along." Usopp even has the first shot. Like, the captain runs out and is just like, "You face the random pirates. We will defeat you." Usopp's just, "I hit him!" Yeah! Usopp is kind of a secret badass in this movie, I gotta say. And so Zoro and Sanji jump on the deck of the ship, and they just completely decimate the pirate crew, so that was something interesting there. We also get, at this moment, Adele gets to see the Straw Hats in action. That's why they incorporated this scene. And so after this moment, Luffy is the one now that sits down and talks to Adele about the Straw Hat and what that means. And, you know, Shanks gave up an arm so, you know, he could believe in me and everything like that. And so that's where we find out the backstory there with Luffy as he explains that to Adele. Now we get to the climax of this movie. Now, the climax of this one, it's a little weird. It's a little different. Stuff happens, action does happen, but, well, let me just explain this. It took me how long? It took me about an hour to get to this point in the review. I have to cut that down for editing, but it took me a while to get to this point. I would probably say we're halfway through this, halfway through the runtime of the movie. But the rest of this, I could summarize way quicker, all right? So we first find out that the location that all of the pirates are heading towards for the Dead End Race is actually not a pirate paradise called Pardia. It's actually a marine base, Navarone, also known as G8. So literally, all these eternal poses are bringing pirates to their doom to be shot to death from the giant mountain fortress of Navarone, okay? And we even see, unfortunately, Arthur Allen Appleseed, the denim jacket guy, get completely obliterated, and his entire crew dies. He made it, hey, he made it further than the Giants or the other guy that the Straw Hats defeated, so AAA, man, he did it. He managed to make it through. Anyway, it's all been a massive scam, a massive cheat. Gasparde was the one that was behind the entire Dead End race. I mean, it was a race that was led by pirates, for God's sakes. You know what I mean? Like, there was gonna be some duplicitous shit going on in the background. So Gasparde was basically like, yeah, we'll do the Dead End race this year. Here, give everybody these freaking eternal poses to just walk right into a marine base. That'll be funny. Ha 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 ha. And by the way, why is Gasparde doing this? Like, what is his big criminal pirate motivation for all this? Like, why is he doing this, right? Is he trying to eliminate the competition for the One Piece? No, he's actually not even interested in the One Piece. He's a pirate that's like, dreams are all bullcrap. He's honestly kind of like a combination of Bellamy and, I mean, not really Drake, because Drake wasn't actually he actually wasn't a pirate. He was really secretly working for the Marines this whole time. Actually, if you really think about it, Gasparde is, like, he's non-canon, but he's one of the very few Marines that actually just straight up became a pirate. Because we know Drake did not really become a pirate. He's like a double agent. Aokiji is technically working for Blackbeard right now, but I'm going to assume Aokiji's also not really a pirate. He's just doing a double agent thing as well. Zephyr left the Marines to not really become a pirate, but to start the Neo Marines. He didn't like pirates, so he's not going to be a pirate. He's starting his own thing. Roshinade was pretending to be a pirate, but actually was a Marine. Virgo was a pirate that was also pretending to be a Marine, but he wasn't a Marine, you know, leaving to be a pirate. You know, he was a pirate from the beginning that was just pretending to be a Marine. Sorry if this is getting confusing. Point is, Gasparde is one of the few characters in this story, non-canon or canon, that started off as a full-fledged Marine and then decided to defect to be a pirate and actually did stay a pirate, right? Like, that actually doesn't happen as much as you'd think in One Piece, right? It's either they were pirates to begin with or double agents like Drake, okay? And the reason for that is Gasparde is just like, I don't like the ocean. I hate the sea. He even says that in the movie. I hate the sea, so I was a Marine, but then I became a pirate, but I don't want the One Piece. What the hell do I want with my life? You know, Gasparde, I think you need to sit down. I think you need to have maybe some meditation, maybe burn some incense or something, and really just think about what you want in life, because it really makes no sense from this movie's perspective. Like, I hate the sea, so I became a Marine, and then I hate the Marines, so I became a pirate, but I'm not really interested in being a pirate, because I don't really care about dreams or the One Piece, so I'm just really just kind of killing time and easing my boredom. Gasparde, go start a bakery. Just pack it up and go start a bakery, or a candy shop, maybe. We'll see where that goes later, okay? But anyway, so that's part of Gasparde's massive plan there. We have now a scene with Shuraiya on board Gasparade's ship, talking to the boiler man, Biera. Adele's like Gramps, and so he's down there talking to him. He actually gets kind of serious. He's like this sickly old man, but he sees Shuraiya about to destroy the boiler because he wants to cause a distraction so he can go take Gasparade's head. And so the old boiler man steps out and he's just like, I won't let you harm my boiler. He takes like a big thing of like vodka and just breaks the bottle, and he's just like, I'll fight you, Sonny, bring it on. I might be old, but I'll defend that boiler to the last. You know, so there's that scene, and Shuraiya's standing there just like, relax, old man, I'm not going to destroy your boiler. And they talk, and they find out about the past with Adele, and how like Shuraiya is actually her older brother, and so that's like the guy that saved her from Alina, like the island Gasparade attacked. That's the reason Shuraiya is there, for vengeance against Gasparde for destroying his homeland and separate. Well, he thought his sister was dead, and so he finds out about all this. But Adele, his younger sister, is currently with the Straw Hats, so she's not there. So Shuraiya's like, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna go defeat Needless and then Gasparde, and then I'm going to find my sister, okay? And so that's where he picks up the shovel, and he just walks on the main deck of Gasparde's ship, the Salamander. He's sitting there on a throne just like, yeah, I knew who you were, idiot. I didn't think you were actually joining my crew. I know you're a bounty hunter. I know, it was plain as day you were after my head. Whatever. Needless, go after him. So Needless and Shuraiya begin to fight. It's a very brutal fight. It's a little bit more bloody, and there's a lot more broken limbs and stuff involved. There's one scene where Shuraiya breaks Needless's arm, and then Needless takes his broken arm that's like shattered at the elbow, and then just BAM! Pounds it into Shuraiya's face. Just like, my arm's broken, but whatever. BAM! And just slams it into the face. He's got those giant Wolverine claws that are like retractable. I don't even know what's the technical term for those things. I don't even know. I just always call them Wolverine claws. Shuraiya's got the shovel. He's kind of a badass with that shovel. He's spinning around doing martial arts stuff, knocking Needless back. They both get beat up pretty damn bad. The fight finally ends, though, with them on top of the paddles for the paddle ship. It's a steamship. And so he knocks down Shuraiya, and he's about to stab him right through the head. Shuraiya moves out of the way at the last minute, and Needless stabs the paddles, getting his glove, like caught in the mechanism, and his arm is stuck, and then freaking Shuraiya just appears with a shovel behind him, like, see ya. Bam! And then just knocks him over the side of the ship into the ocean. And he doesn't have a devil fruit or anything, but he was pretty banged up, and he's basically dead because we don't see him for the rest of this movie. And then finally he moves up. He's all beaten and bloody, and he's like, okay, well, guess I'm gonna go fight you now, Gasparde. Ugh. Prepare to pay for your nefarious deeds. And so he goes to attack Gasparde with a shovel while he's already beat to shit, and whoosh! Slices him right through the head with a shovel spade, and then his body just splits because he's a Logia, and we find out he has the power of the Ame Ame no Mi, a Logia candy fruit, which I can guarantee you that Oda probably would have called Parospero's fruit the Ame Ame no Mi if it wasn't for Gasparde's character. I don't think Gasparde, I don't think Perospero would have been a Logia per se, but the fact that his technique, his devil fruit is the Pero no Mi, the Lick fruit, it still makes sense, but the candy fruit would have made more sense, right? But this was already used by Gasparde. So he has the ability to turn into green, gooey candy syrup. Basically think like a combination of Crocodile, Perospero, and Katakuri. Because when Luffy finally gets around to fighting him, it's the same basic thing that happened with Katakuri. Well, Luffy will go to punch him, his fist will get stuck inside of his body because of the sticky candy or the sticky mochi, and then he can't leave. And so basically kind of like that. So we're not only foreshadowing Perospero, we're also foreshadowing Katakuri. Plus maybe the kind of foreshadowing of Sanji's backstory. So this is just like getting stuff involved in the Totland arc like 15 years before the Totland arc starts. That's awesome. That's pretty cool. So, yeah, he tries to fight Gasparde with a shovel, but Shuraiya, unfortunately, doesn't have any armament hockey, and the shovel's only going to get you so far. And so he gets defeated by him pretty handily. At this point, the Straw Hats show up. Luffy Gumu Gumu no rockets over to Gasparde's ship, knocks out the random riffraff of the crew. The rest of the Straw Hats are kind of dealing with it. A giant typhoon is being whipped up in the meantime, and so that's happening. And this is basically where we get the final climax. I mean, it's a cool scene with the weather and the music, and Luffy's like in the rain. Like, the rain isn't just there for like a background decoration. Sometimes the rain and the wind and the mist gets so intense it's actually hard to see what's going on. Like, you're actually caught in a storm or like a maelstrom or something. I imagine seeing it on the big screen when it was first released, that would have been actually a really cool fight scene to witness with like the snow. Like, this would have been a cool moment in like 4D. If you ever seen like a 4D movie, like I remember one time I was in New York and we went to Central Park and they had like a 4D thing about penguins, and so they had like the seats that like vibrate and like the blast the air into the auditorium and like blow like the snow around to make you feel like you're really there. It was an interesting experience if nothing else, and so doing something like that for this scene I could imagine working very well. It'd be very immersive. Anyway, Luffy starts fighting against Gasparde. He can't really do much of anything to hurt him because he's a Logia, although there's one scene where Gasparde makes like a spike out of candy because he's basically a semi-solid and a solid and kind of a liquid too, using his fruit, and he actually stabs Luffy's straw hat, rips right through it, and Luffy, as you can imagine, like, you will die now, and goes to punch Gasparde and actually manages to wound him. He actually manages to hurt him with the punch. Now, I guess you could just say that Gasparde is not as adept with his Logia as Crocodile was. Crocodile was able to reflexively turn his body into sand, so you couldn't hurt him. Even if you caught him off guard, it still wouldn't work because, he could still just turn into sand. Gasparde's probably not that adept at it, so that's why he got hurt. But I can't help but think, in that moment, when Luffy saw his straw hat ripped up bad, stabbed through by Gasparde, and that was somebody that Luffy already despised. The rage that he's feeling right here in that scene, you could see it on his face. There was a brief glimmer of armament hockey there, like, BAM! And just like, cuts his face. Just for a moment. Just for a moment. That's my headcanon for that scene, okay? So The fight continues. Luffy tries a lot of the same tricks he tried against Crocodile. He tries the Gumu Gumu no Baku Baku. He tries to eat Gasparde, like he just takes a big bite out of the candy, and then you see this green candy syrup just dripping out of Luffy's nose and his mouth. And it's the same thing, like Crocodile, you know, he popped out of Luffy's mouth like, enough of this silliness! Same thing with Gasparde, enough of this foolishness! He just bursts out of Luffy's mouth, and then he, like, makes spikes and stuff and tries to hurt him. Sanji this entire time is running around the ship and finds these 2 giant bags of flour, and he's just like, oh, he's made out of candy syrup. All right, hang on, Luffy. I have something that might be able to help you, because he's the cook. And he's like, I think I know. Something in order to fight a giant ball of candy without getting your hands stuck. Okay, I have something. I'm the chef. Hold on. So he shows up and just gives Luffy these giant bags of flour, and he's just like, here, you can use those. I'm going to get everybody out of here. Bye! And so he leaves. Luffy, he takes 1 bag of flour and dumps it over himself, just like he's like Mizu Luffy or Water Luffy, and then he's able to, like, he's covered in flour, so he can punch Gasparde without getting stuck. Oh, I gotta tell you this one more scene, though. Before that, before Luffy figures out the flour trick, oh my god, this was so cool. So, Luffy's trying to figure out other ways to damage Gasparde, because he's like, okay, regular gum pistols won't work, I'll just get stuck. I can't eat them, because they'll just pop out of my mouth. Let's try this. So there's one scene where Luffy goes to punch him. The punch goes, like, right here, like, he dodges it effortlessly, because Luffy wasn't really aiming for him. Luffy grabs the mast of the ship, this giant mast, and then pulls it back and rams the entire mast right through the back of Gasparde, just impaled by this thing, and boom! He slams on the deck with this giant piece of wood, stabbing him right through the body, and then Luffy jumps up in the air and uses Gumu Gumu no Yari, Gumu Gumu no Spear, to pile drive that mast right through him like a freaking nail gun. Oh my god, that was cool! That was cool! And so, he's a Logia, but he says, like, oh, that actually hurt, you know, like, I actually felt that. So he gets up, and then Luffy figures out the flour trick. He covers his body in flour so he can punch Gasparde without his hands sticking, and then he throws the other bag of flour, just covering Gasparde. And so, oh crap, now it's an even fight. He covers his whole body in spikes out of candy, trying to fight back. And so Luffy finishes him off with a Gumu Gumu no Bazooka, bam! And he's just, like, struggling a bit, like, yeah, bam! And he knocks him back into the freaking West Blue, or I guess it would be the South Blue in this regard, sends them flying in the opposite direction, okay? Luffy's Straw Hat, though, does get pretty messed up in this fight. Gasparde does rip it up pretty damn bad, to the point where it's probably the most damage the Straw Hat has ever taken, and so that looks pretty rough right there. That looks pretty scary, right? In the process of the typhoon and everything, the Straw Hat also gets away from Luffy, so he actually loses his Straw Hat for a time here. Shuraiya picks it back up. He regained consciousness and, like, oh, there's Straw Hat. He said this is important. Guess I'll take it. So Gasparde is defeated. Needless is defeated. The Straw Hats managed to get away from Navarone so they don't get bombarded with, cannonballs. And that's pretty much the end of the movie. Shuraiya is reunited with Adele. They have a happy little thing. Shuraiya gives Luffy back his hat, and it's said, like, oh, Nami can fix it the same way she fixed it after Buggy stabbed it. Like, there's a giant hole in the center, and the side is ripped up, but I guess, hey, it's just made out of straw. It's a straw hat, so I guess fixing it's not a problem. Although you do kind of have like a Ship of Theseus thing going on here. Like, for, let's say, the Ship of Theseus is like that old, like, thought experiment where it's like, let's say a ship leaves the port, and then throughout the course of its journey, piece by piece, it has to be replaced with new lumber and new material. And by the time it makes its way all the way back to port a year later, it's not one part of the ship is the original. So is it still the same ship? Is it still the Ship of Theseus if every part of it has been replaced? It's kind of like a thought experiment. Is Luffy's Straw Hat still the same Straw Hat if Nami had to, like, repair it all with all new straw at different points? I don't know, maybe. I don't know. That's just something for you. That's like a thought experiment that's been around for a while. At any rate, that's the end of the movie. Like I said, like the ending of this is not really super epic or anything. The Straw Hats don't get the 300 million. The dead end race was, you know, all bullshit from the beginning. Essentially, Gasparde is defeated. Shuraiya is reunited with his sister. Bier is there. Their Gramps. Their town is still burned down, so I guess they'll have to find somewhere new to live. But you know, they seem happy. Everything seems good, and Luffy got his hat back, and so yeah. End of the movie. You know, not really much in that regard, you know, but the ending was good. I like the ending credits. It shows a little scene like from Bon Voyage, one of the fourth One Piece opening, with the Straw Hats being chased by the marine ship, and then you also have really cool background art of each of the Straw Hats in like kind of like a pencil sketch kind of style, so that's really neat. No post-credit scenes or anything like that, but I have to say, for the first official cinematic outing of the Straw Hats, this was pretty good. This was a pretty good movie. In fact, most of the time when I see people rating the One Piece movies, which in the the past of these videos I've done, I see people talking a lot about like their favorites and everything. Dead End Adventure seems to rank pretty high up there. If you're talking about the movies that happened before Strong World, where Strong World was kind of like a turning point on what One Piece movies were, Strong World was the movie where it's like, okay, One Piece is like this huge sensation now. They're gonna get these huge, giant cinematic releases that are going to be dubbed and in a bunch of countries. It's like, you know, a big event now when a One Piece movie hits the theaters, right? Back then, when it was much more of just like oh, it's a very popular anime in Japan and it's getting another movie, the first movie that's actually in cinemas, that's something that's pretty good. And I think for the first outing, pretty cool. Just with a lot of the connections to like Nami's character and Sanji's character, even if it's not like a lot of this is like headcanon and stuff, like Sanji's backstory being referenced. But you know, watching it now with what we know so much later in the story, you can at least tell that like, you know, these things do sync up. There's no like contradictories or anything like that. So, you know, that's pretty cool. But at any rate, the next film is going to be One Piece Movie 5, The Curse of the Holy Sword, or The Cursed Holy Sword. This is gonna be Zoro's movie. Everybody out there wondering, hey man, Zoro's pretty cool. When's he gonna get his movie? Well, he gets one. Is it any good? Well,